Hi, hello. I'm Robbo, and welcome back to my series on testosterone therapy, or welcome if you're new here. Remember my last week's, well, 2 weeks ago, the week zero video that I posted? It's still technically week zero because the testosterone hasn't arrived yet. But I did have my HRT appointment last week, and things are officially moving forward. So I wanted to give you all an update on how that went because honestly, I went in with some expectations and the reality was a little bit different. So let's go ahead and get into it. Going into this telehealth appointment with my new hormone replacement therapy doctor, I'm not gonna lie, I had some preconceived notions. I don't even know what I was expecting. I've heard some horror stories, so I thought maybe some stodgy old dude who was gonna grill me or be reluctant to help me. I don't know. But I was definitely shaking a little bit leading up to the appointment. But honestly, it went really well. Super smooth. You might not know this, but Plume does all of their visits via telehealth, which is so convenient. Plume connected me with a doctor in Baltimore who is licensed to practice in my state, which is important because did you know the doctor prescribing your hormones has to be licensed to practice in your specific state? It's kind of wild to think about that, especially with some states trying to ban gender affirming care altogether. Imagine if you were a trans kid and you lived in like Tennessee. You couldn't get your hormones at all. I think that's crazy. Anyway, it turns out my doctor was another trans dude. And that honestly made me feel so much more comfortable. He was really knowledgeable and he took the time to answer all my questions about what the transition process was really like. So, the bulk of the appointment was going over the details of the hormones themselves, the risks and benefits of testosterone therapy. We talked about dosages, what kind of changes I'm hoping for, and the timeline for those changes. So, the biggest issue is the risks. Because of my complicated health history, some of you might know I've had blood clots in the past. We spent a good amount of time talking about the blood thinner situation. I had already done my homework, so nothing he said was a huge shock to me there. We all know testosterone can increase the risk of blood clots. But thankfully, my hematologist, who is, by the way, another incredibly supportive and affirming doctor, he has me on a blood thinner for my history of deep vein thrombosis. So we've kept the dosage of my blood thinner high to hopefully counteract any potential clotting caused by the testosterone. Another thing we talked about, which is a big one for a lot of guys, is hair loss. The baldness genes run strong in my family. So, to combat that, I'm going to be starting a medication called finasteride. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Finasteride is in a class of medications called 5 alpha reductase inhibitors. It treats hair loss by blocking a hormone called BPH that stops hair growth. So I am hoping it prevents the worst of the male pattern baldness that runs in my family. The downside to finasteride is that it can affect growth down there and reduce the size of those parts, which could complicate any future bottom surgery I might decide to have. But at least I'll have hair on my head. Then there's the lovely topic of vaginal discomfort. Thankfully, I had a hysterectomy back in 2015, well, 2017, due to some post birth health stuff. So I don't have to worry about a monthly visitor or anything like that. But it turns out taking out the uterus also cut off the main blood supply to my ovaries. So my ovaries have kind of retired. The result of that early retirement is that my downstairs mix up is no longer moist on its own. So I will probably eventually need to use a tropical estrogen cream to keep things happy down there. But for the meantime, we're just going to continue using the regular estrogen patches that I've already been prescribed until those run out. We also made sure to cover the permanent changes that will stick around even if I decide to stop taking tea later down the line. For example, my deeper voice. That's going to stick around even if I quit testosterone. Once those vocal cords lengthen, that's a permanent change. Any Adam's apple growth, that's also a permanent fixture. And the one that's a little less exciting is that any hair that falls out due to male pattern baldness, that will not grow back if I stop taking testosterone. Also, any changes to the naughty bits, that's also permanent. Okay, so we've gotten through all the risks, and now it's time for the benefits. First and foremost, I get to finally be me. I get to finally feel like my outside matches my inside. It's hard to even begin to put into words how huge a thing that is. Also, muscles. Hello, muscles. The idea of actually being able to build more muscle mass is super exciting. My mom's side of the family is all Russian, so we put on muscle mass pretty easily, and I'm looking forward to getting swole. Then there's the fat redistribution. Goodbye, badonkadonk. Hello, beer gut, I guess. Alas, apparently the fat distribution tends to move around from the hips and thighs over to the abdominal area once the testosterone kicks in. So we'll see how that goes. My face should thin out a little bit, and I'm curious to see how that changes things. Also, given enough time, my beard should come in. That's pretty exciting. I think I'm going to start with a goatee, but I might end up with one of those ZZ Top style mountain man beards. I don't know. A lot of that is dependent on your genetics, so who knows? I might end up with just weird patches of beard and no coherent structure. I guess we'll find out. All right, so forms and dosages. We talked about how my hormones will be administered. Right now, before starting testosterone, I am on an estrogen patch, a progesterone pill, and a testosterone cream, all prescribed by a previous doctor to treat female sex hormone deficiency. But once I officially start my testosterone with Plume, my testosterone will be the injectable kind instead of a cream. So, needles. I'm familiar with how to do the injections because I had to do my own blood thinner injections when I was pregnant with our kids, so this is all old news to me. But the injection is supposed to be done intramuscularly or subcutaneously, which means that it'll be deeper than my blood thinner injections were, but this is still manageable. We're going to start with a slightly lower dose of testosterone than average, so we can track whether or not my blood coagulates the way it is possible it can coagulate. My estrogen will eventually switch to a topical cream instead of the patch that I'm using now so that it's not systemic. And the progesterone I mostly take to even out my mood swings, and that'll stay in pill form for now. I'll finish out the estrogen and progesterone prescriptions that I have already, and then we will reassess using a 3-month blood test to check my hormone levels. The best part about all of this is that I don't have to go to a pharmacy to get my hormones. They get sent straight to my house, and they're super affordable too. If I've done it right, you should be seeing some images of the price list for the mail order pharmacy right now. The only downside to this is that they don't accept insurance for the mail order pharmacy. So my hormones will come straight to my house for the low price of $82.12 plus taxes, which seems like a lot, but you have to remember that that's for a 90-day supply of hormones. That breaks down to something like $28 a month for life-saving gender-affirming care. That's not bad. So yeah, that was pretty much it. It was surprisingly straightforward, almost anticlimactic. I've spent so many years struggling with this feeling of being trans, of my body not matching who I am inside, for my whole life, really. And now to finally have access to the medication that will help align those things without having to jump through a million hoops or fight tooth and nail for it, it's honestly super weird in the best way possible. It's like this huge weight has been lifted, even though I haven't even started testosterone yet. Just knowing that it's finally happening, that it's about to happen for real, is a massive relief. Special thanks go out to Plume for being available to folks like me. This isn't a sponsored video. I just really believe in what they're doing, and I want to get out the word for those who might be looking for treatment options. Again, you can find them at getplume.co. All right, so that's the update for this week. Still officially week 0, but I am officially testosterone approved. And my prescription is literally in the mail. I will keep y'all posted on when the medication arrives and when I take that first shot. It's going to be a journey, and I'm glad you're here to witness it with me. If you have any questions about Plume or the process I went through, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to follow along. And if you leave a mean comment, please know that I understand what it feels like to be envious of someone else's actions and freedom. I understand desperately wanting something and not feeling like you're allowed to have it. That's a natural and normal feeling. Leave your mean comment below, but do it knowing that I will pray for you. I will pray for you to find self-acceptance and peace. Please know that even though I don't know you, I love you. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next week.